Welcome to the channel. I'd like to introduce you to my new 3000 point Emperor's Children army for Horus Heresy, and I also want to jump around a little bit, talk about the hobby and collection side of things, as well as how to pick a Horus Heresy army and how this particular one functions on the tabletop. But before we get into all the stuff and things, I have to shout out these bases. Now, I speed painted the Necron's army last year, and there's a video in the back catalogue that you can go and check out. Now, because it's speed painted, to make the army sing, I put them on these gorgeous bases from marchofwar.co.uk. And I wanted to do a similar thing with the Emperor's Children, so I got in contact with James from marchofwar.co.uk and then got really annoying. Because he does these bases, March of War, click on the thing, which are these ones, the Urban Rubble bases. And he does these bases, the Lost Reliquary bases. And I wanted to use both of those base types, but I also needed some kind of base design which would help cross the gap between the two. So I literally asked him to design some more, and he said yes. And he designed these ones, Besieged Ruins. What a legend. So now I have these bases in the Emperor's Children army. Here we go. And on Ancient Rylanor, for example. And then the Reliquary ones, and then the new ones that bridge the gap. So what I've got here is 3 different designs of bases. Not one single base in my entire army is the same. And then the idea is this is all rubble and ruins and dead space marines from Isstvan 3. Because like the Sons of Horus army, I want my Emperor's Children army to be loyalist survivors from Isstvan 3. And so I wanted all the bases to represent the shattered rubble of Isstvan 3. We've got some skeletons in there, the ruined space marines, bits of rubble, bits of rock, bits of stuff. It's really cool. So thank you, James, and check out marchofwar.co.uk for all your basing needs. He also does stuff like this, and this, and this. The lid comes off. So, 3,000 points worth of Emperor's Children that have either survived Isstvan 3 or fighting on Isstvan 3 if I set a bunch of battlers there, which is why the design is a bit hodgepodge, which is why it is a bit non-uniform. It's like that by design. Because as you can see, I've got lots of white patches spread out through the collection. And the reason for that is in the source material, like the Black Library books and this stuff here, they actually give you quite a lot of information on how your army could, should, maybe look. And in Emperor's Children forces, white tends to signify Terran origin, loyalist affiliation. Platinum signifies elite status. And that's why the Phoenix Terminator squads all have the white tabards, and all the shoulder pads are silver, platinum. Phoenix Terminators are the elite of the elite. Now I know they often serve primarily as Primarch Fulgrim's personal retinue, but some of them must have been loyalists, right? Like Lucius, he was definitely a loyalist during Isstvan 3, well for 99.9% of it anyway. And as you can see, I've got more to come. The Palatine Blade Squad aren't painted yet. These are Forge World. For those that don't know, Forge World, click on that. We go here. Warhammer 40k, Horus Heresy, Age of Sigmar, Forge World is a part of Games Workshop. And they do all the resin sculpts like the Palatine blades. So these guys, there's going to be a lot of white and silver to represent their elite status. But because of the wobbly blades, I asked a friend to print out a bunch of extra swords. So I cut off some swords and replaced them with 3D printed swords. That sorts out the problem, but I still have a problem with the remaining Emperor's Children, which is Games Workshop don't support all the bits that I want to get, so I have to print out some more 3D printed stuff. Well, not me, I don't have a 3D printer. 3D printing is a hobby in itself, so I talk to people who like that sort of thing. Games Workshop haven't supported Horus Heresy in the way that I'd like to see it supported. For example, the bikes have just come out, but there are no jump packs if you want to make a Raven Guard army, for example. They've just released a close combat sprue where you can add your bits to the things, but the heavy weapons sprue had like 10 las cannons and 10 missile launchers and 10 had lots of things in. Close combat sprue's got like 5 bits in, or enough to cover like 5 Marines and make it a spoiler squad. And then back to the Games Workshop website, you can see the new bikes are out of stock. The new Whirlwind, that's out of stock at the time of filming. They always seem to have something out of stock. Yes, it comes as no surprise to anyone in this hobby that Games Workshop have been struggling with supply issues for the last, I want to say like 6 months since Heresy has been released, but let's just say 6 years. They've been struggling with supply issues and they're doing some stuff to sort it out. There's a new automated packing system which is struggling, and a whole new warehouse next to Manchester Airport or East Midlands Airport where they stick all the... They're trying to sort it out. The point is, when you can't get the bits that you want to get, where are you going to get your bits from? You're going to get them from eBay, you're going to get them from third-party publishers, or they're going to push people into 3D printing to print out the stuff and things that you need. So I really hope they sort it all out soon, because one, I want to get the Games Workshop stuff. I want to get the official stuff, like the doors on my Rhino, like the Emperor's Children upgrade dude, like all the official Emperor's Children shoulder pads, all the official Emperor's Children chest plates, because the Emperor's Children are the only ones that wore the Emperor's Aquila. 146 quid just for all the chest plates to make this army. I want all the stuff and things. I want my army to look like survivors of Isstvan 3, and I really want Horus Heresy to be successful and Games Workshop to sort its shizzle out. In the meantime, the release schedule of the Horus Heresy product is literally pushing people towards 3D printing. And obviously, that's a problem for Games Workshop and a problem for people like me who just want to go to the website, click on the things, buy on the things, leave the things. Anything more complicated than that, when it comes to technology, I normally break it. So, mini rant over. All that is to say that collecting this wasn't as easy as it should have been. But when you look across this army, what you'll see is mainly Mark IV Heresy era pattern armor. There's no Mark III, because I figured that would be very Death Guard, very Iron Hands, very stuff like that. We seek perfection, none of that heavy armour. There is a bit of Mark II Crusade era pattern armour in here, like on my Sergeant's legs and things here, because we're at an early point in the Crusade. And then there are hints at Heresy era Mark V, like on this helmet here, which I did get a Heresy Mark V upgrade kit from Forge World as well, to mix it in there, because right at the start of the Heresy. And then you end up with this ragtag band of heroes. It's not a clean, smooth approach that you might expect from Emperor's Children. They've picked up the bits of plate, they've picked up the bits of armour that they need to continue to function on the battlefield of Isstvan 3. Having said all that, I did minimal battle damage to all the Tonks because I didn't want them full 13th. I wanted them... I mean, they would take as much care of their armour and their armoury as possible because they are Emperor's Children. So it's not as dirty as it could have been. The other thing that I tried to do is... Artificer armour is a thing in Horus Heresy. Basically, you stick it on your sergeants. It helps keeps your units alive. So I tried to Artificer armour up the sergeants as much as possible to make, like, he's got platinum on his soldier there, elite status. He's got his quiff, his big quiff hairdo on top. Or this Sergeant's Artificer armour, symbolised by, well, that's a Stone Guard shoulder pad from 40k and Stone Guard legs. But it makes it stand out, makes the armour pop a little bit more. So in the end, the overall aesthetic isn't clean perfection. So Fulgrim would be mad, and I want Fulgrim to be mad, because this army is loyalist. Instead, it is a ragtag band of heroes, of elites, of survivors from the Isstvan 3 massacre. Okay, so this is a good start. What am I adding to this? A Storm Eagle gunship. So I've got transport capacity to stick all those Phoenix Terminators in. I'm not adding a Spartan because I'm taking Pride of the Legion Rite of War. We'll talk about that in a bit. I've also got the characters, Soltavits, Eidolon, and I need to lean towards the bad guy side of things as well. So yes, I will be getting Fulgrim and some Cacophony and stuff like that for when I want to do an Emperor's Children on Emperor's Children fight. Or for when I want to do good guy Emperor's Children taking on bad guy, say, Sons of Horus, with a bad guy Emperor's Children detachment attached to them, allies attached to them. We're going deep, we're going all the way in, but we're starting at 3,000 points because that's what Games of Heresy are set at. Well, or that's the level that they say you should aim for. And having played over 20 games of Horus Heresy now, I agree. 2,000 points is a bit too small for playing Games of Heresy. It's such a brutal game. Now I want to talk about how this functions on the tabletop and how I went collecting this particular army for Horus Heresy. Starting with the chunky books of Doom, they're not as intimidating as you might think on first glance, because this is a chunky book. But that is 9 codexes, and that's 9 codexes. And when you want to start an army, say you want to start word bearers, there's 2 places that you can go to. Each faction has its thing. What thing? This thing. Word bearers are trooper leaders. Their leadership can never fall below a value of 6. And if they draw a close combat, they count as winning it by 1. So that's one of the starting points if you want to build a word bearers army or any army. Start from this little bit, and True Believers is leaning more into a close combat force rather than a shooting force, fanatics getting in there, chopping each other up. The other starting point you can go to is the Rites of War. Almost all the legions have 2 Rites of War, some have a few more, particularly Dark Angels, but all of them have about 2 Rites of War, and they're split into 2 halves. One is like a post-heresy Rite of War, the way they used to fight before the heresy, and then pre-heresy. This is the post-heresy one, how they fight after the heresy. And also inside the big chunky books, you can go back to all the generic rites of war, such as Recon Company, Angel's Wrath, Sky Hunter Phalanx. If you want an army full of dreadnoughts, you can bring Fury the Ancients. If you want an army full of vehicles, Iron Warriors, Iron Hands type stuff, you can bring an Iron Armoured Spearhead. Well, what is a Rite of War? Well, this is a force org, and the Rite of War allows you to take either more troops or more heavies or more fast or something like that. It monkeys around with the force org. The Word Bearer's Rite of War, Last of the Serrated Sun, allows you to take Galvorback squads as troop choices. Here are the Galvorback. They're elites. And in the standard force attachment, you're only allowed 4 elites. So say I wanted 6 elites. Say I wanted extra dreadnoughts, extra this, extra that. I could take some of the Galvorback as troops, which frees up extra elite slots. And that's how I'd recommend going about building a heresy army, taking a look at the rites of war, taking a look at the special rule. A lot of factions as well get specific weapons, which you can lean into as well. These will help you figure out what kind of force works well in a word bearer's army. And you'll notice melee, they do like getting in there. A quick edit while we're here. I know I said post-heresy, pre-heresy, which works for almost all the factions except word bearers, because they're all nasty all the time. So let's take a look at what I did with the Emperor's Children. Emperor's Children have flawless execution. When they charge, they get +1 initiative. Here's a tactical squad. Here's initiative, and lots of 40k players are saying, what is initiative? Initiative is speed. It's how quick you are, whether you strike first or not. If your initiative is higher than your opponent, you'll hit them before they hit you. Jagatai Khan of the White Scars, the legion that exemplifies speed. He has an initiative of 8. Mortarion, for example, isn't as quick. Not that Mortarion, this Mortarion. He has initiative of 5. The Khan will strike him before Mortarion strikes back. Emperor's Children strive for perfection in all things, particularly combat. So if you're facing against them and you go charging into them, you'll be striking at the same time in most cases. But if Emperor's Children charge you, if they have the drop, if they get to wage their perfect warfare, then they can wipe out whole squads or put lots of damage on squads before they even get to strike back. Flawless execution, perfect bladesman. As exemplified by Lucius, the Flawless Blade. I mean, he's initiative 6. He's faster than Mortarion. On the charge, that'll be initiative 7. So with that in mind, down in the horror and the ruins and the rubble of Isstvan III, I built an army that should excel in close combat. I had a look at their rites of war, and in this case, didn't use either of them. The Marusaka allows them to outflank, allows them to move a little bit quicker and set perfect ambushes. That didn't ring for me for Isstvan 3. And the Company Elite one allows you to cacophony cover those squads as troops. But you can only use it if you're a traitor, and it might be something I do later, but not for Isstvan 3. So I went with Pride of the Legion, which allows you to take some elite choices as troops choices. And that works well with the narrative, because I figure that the survivors of the virus bombs will be the best of the best, the elites. And I want to hit in close combat, and elites are better at hitting in close combat. With Pride of the Legion, you can take Legion veteran squads, and as you can see, they're a chocolate box. You can add pretty much whatever you want to your veteran squad. They're the Stern Guard or the Vanguards of Horus Heresy. You can take 2 of these as line troops, and line troops in 40k terms is objective secured. A weapon skill of 5 means that they're hitting most things on 3s and most things are hitting them back on 5s. And initiative 4 means if I go charging in, I'm an initiative 5, I'm smacking people at a better weapon skill than they're smacking me back. So there are 3 Legion veteran squads here which all become troops. 2 of them become the compulsory troops and gain the line keyword, the OBSEC keyword. These are 2 Legion tactical support squads which have OBSEC as well, so that's 4 OBSEC. And then there's a cheeky thing that you can do with the Terminators to make them OBSEC as well, but I haven't done that yet. I need a standard. I'm going to get a standard. I'm going to stick it in there. And the Legion veteran squads are a chocolate box. They can nuke anything they hit. They get extra attacks because they're veterans. They have an extra weapon skill because they're veterans. I've got a couple of claws, a couple of charnable blades, a couple of chainsaws in this squad. I've even got plasma in there because Legion veteran squads gain relentless. So normally in 40k there are rules around what you can shoot and charge. You can't fire heavy weapons in and then go charging in unless you've got relentless. So you can with the plasmas here. And each of the Legion veteran sergeants in these squads, they're tooled up. They've got the artificer armor. They've got a hammer. Yes, that will hit at initiative 1 or initiative 2 on the charge, but all the other guys... Yeah, they're good. They're good for killing Terminators at Brutal 2. I've given them all melter bombs as well, which means that these Legion veteran squads they're not scared of anything. They can take on Terminators. They can go charging into Land Raiders with the melter bombs. They can even cause problems to Dreadnoughts. And that's why I love these books, because if you look at the rights of war and you look at the way that the armies fight, the armies function, it almost tells you what you should bring. Each codex, for example, is only 6-7 pages long, but there's loads of hidden nuggets in there. For example, in the Iron Warriors, you can take Olympian shrapnel weapons, and all their bolters look. They all cause pinning. You can build an army around their way of war, or build it around a rite of war, or look at what kind of weapons they want to take and build it around that, or build it around all 3. And then when you look at factions that have a very specific way of war, such as White Scars, and you're thinking, surely I'll be able to take loads of bikes and speeders and things. You look at the Rite of War and the book says, yes you can. Chagorian Brotherhood, you don't even have to take any infantry. You can take these as troops with OBSEC, lots of them. A quick note on that though, you don't just have to be, anyone can do it with the Sky Hunter Phalanx, generic Rite of War. It's just that White Scars do it much better. So if you've got a faction that you really want to play, give those 7 or 8 pages a really good study and you'll find a way of war, a method of warfare that really makes them sing. And in the case of the Emperor's Children, they want to get into close combat. They want to strike first and show off their martial perfection, which means that Pride of the Legion works really well for them. And Pride of the Legion also works really well for Isfahan 3, as I've mentioned. Now, these are narrative lists, way of building tough narrative lists, I like to think. If you want to win at Horus Heresy, if you just want to smash your opponents, you can bring Dreadnoughts as troops with Fury the Ancient's Rite of War, which unlocks Condemned Dreadnoughts as troops. You can bring a whole army of them, chuck in some Leviathans for heavy support, backup, and profit, because they'll be very, very tough to take down. Oh, side note, yes, I magnetized all the things. Or the other thing you can do if you really want to win all the time is just bring Custodes. In Horus Heresy, each Custodian is pretty much a mini captain with devastating close combat weapons, AP2 close combat weapons. It's like having an army of captains running around all over the place. They're nasty. All the troops can score, the Emperor is their best friend, and they never skip leg day. If you're looking for perfect balance, then Heresy 2.0 is perhaps not for you, because it's not perfectly balanced in the way that 40k is definitely perfectly balanced with no issues whatsoever. The rules lean heavily on the narrative, so it's easier to break the game than 40k. The perfect example of this is Sol Tarvitz. He has a rule, which means if he kills an Emperor's Children in close combat, he gets a victory point. If he kills Lucius in close combat, he gets 2 extra victory points. Now, 2 points can easily win or lose you the game in Horus Heresy. A lot of games might be 2-1, 3-1, 1-0, those sorts of games. Many are low scoring. It doesn't score like 40k. But how many games of Heresy are you going to see or play where this guy actually kills this guy? It's not going to happen. It's going to happen incredibly rarely. But the game's designers have built a rules system that leans towards and rewards narrative choices rather than whack choices. I mean, I played 20 plus games, and my HQs are always dying to explosions. Dreadnoughts auto blow up. Don't roll a 6, they auto blow up. Units get pinned. Units fall back. Units get blinded and their weapon skill and ballistic skill drops all the way down to 1. Horrible things will happen that you do not expect, and there's no CP rerolls, and honestly, I love it. In games of Horus Heresy, the dice always tell you a story. Right, that seems like a good place to wrap it up. I think I covered a lot of stuff there. We talked about 3D printing. We talked about the lovely basis. Thank you, muchofwar.co.uk. We talked about the biggest piece of advice that I could give you if you wanted to get into this game, which is study that little codex, that 7-8 pages that you have, and see where they sing. And once you've found the thing that makes them sing, lean into it. And the army that you will develop will function and look like an Iron Hands army, or an Emperor's Children army, or a White Scars army. Let the codex point you in the direction you need to go. Do you want more tanks? Do you want more dreadnoughts? Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want a chunk of reserves and a chunk of flyers? And if you do so, take a look at the HQ slots, because there'll be people in there, choices in there that'll allow you to get your reserves on easier or quicker. Do you want lots of Sky Hunters and play White Scars? But you can't, because they're out of stock right now. Do you want lots of jump packs to build a Raven Guard army? Well, then you need to go to Forge World, because Games Workshop haven't released loads of plastic jump packs yet. But the one thing we can take from their drip release schedule is that this game will be supported for some time, and there's lots of more plastic kits coming. I think there's one HH battle report so far on my YouTubes. There's 3 or 4 on the members, so if you'd like to support me and you'd like some more HH battle report videos, then consider becoming a tier 3 channel member. That unlocks all the battle reports and my Discord and things. And then the last thing I wanted to say is Firstborn Marines. The OG, an absolute joy to put together, a joy to paint. I mean, I smashed out these 50 in about 3 months and loved every second of it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and happy wargaming.